So the case and the K. Okay.
Yep. Ready? A few problems with body theater interpretation. First of all, we are body theater. That is the problem with theater. Is an abstraction. It is not a specific act in reality that performs this. It's no different than the act of speaking, which is a representation of the body, the lips moving, as well as other things. Your very high level of body theater is one that you have, first of all, no evidence or any reason or warrant on why our type of body theater of speaking or telling you reasons why your type of interpretation of model is bad, aka our critique or our topicality claims are bad for any type of action. You're just saying we are good as well. Well, we are just as good through our interpretation, which is one that is okay. Also, your high threshold standard for what body theater represents and that only you could do it is bad for debate for a few reasons. It's bad for a few reasons. First of all, it leads to a world of judge intervention where it's impossible to evaluate two people's different bodies and which one looks better, which one necessarily has a better performance or things like that. This is something that is not a rational base that you can make some clear argumentation standard which performs certain type of objectivity or fair evaluation, which is a necessary prerequisite to debate because the ability to have fair argumentation to be evaluated fairly is one of the precursors for having a debate and people coming to debate in the first place. Also, we have a critique indicted this. There's a high threshold for the body is a body theater. It's a regulation of the body. And it's very specificness. This is biopower X at its farthest, which is impacts into extinction. This is at least on the side. This is Foucault in 78. Since the classical age of West Underground ground conservation mechanisms of power reduction has been tended to be no more than major form powers to elevate other working to review, force control, monitor, optimize, organize its force and power, to generate force, making grow, ordering them, rather than competing, making spent wars are no longer waging power and the value of the behaviors on the existence of everyone's entire population with the purpose of wholesale slaughter, namely life and necessity massacres, the violence, the manners of life, survival, bodies, and the race that the certain regimes been able to wage so many wars. The atomic situation of the point of cross power to take the population death outside of power to guarantee an individual's continued existence. This principle of the tax battle, the one being capable of going on living, that is the biggest technological population genocide during the modern powers. It is because they should kill power situated that shines the level of life. The species, the race, large scale dominance of population. We'll have specific link into this right now. That your regulation of the body and refusal to look at the body to question what these types of body theater means is a regulation of yourself and your own historic representation as well as the body, which is what biopower is. Brown 96. It is impossible to fetishize the breaking silence, which makes fetish possible of sense of total emancipation carries no techniques of education. It converges with non-mystery consensus, practical culture, for example, the confessional discourse around personalization of political life, established there's norms comes out of the power of confession, defeats the power of itself, silence, stillness, out of power to the silence from it, as well as the vocabulary of the power of unification, causation created by those usual discourse words to qualify, norm them. They make the parents work breaking silence by fresh new techniques of dominations, our own truth, the rulers rather than main past leaders. Our confessions become the means of norms which regulated our cult of personal experience, more as the shakiness of sorrow, subject, and extreme vulnerability of the domination. On the case debate. Therefore, the argument on why they don't defend a civil remedy is topicality abuse one is proven right here. The only case work we've done on literature, we're a small squad. There are only really a few of us, like 2 or 3 of us, work. We have done on Morrison is based on the civil remedies being bad. It's a primarily part of our strategy. They jack the entirety of this by overruling a rationale for Morrison or one line of it. They don't overrule the whole of Morrison, which proves all of our negative abuse arguments right here. Also, you misunderstand Morrison. I'll make this bring up here. Morrison was not that they don't have a substantial effect on power relations, but rather that they did not have a substantial effects on interstate commerce. This is distinct from power because not power is everything, whereas interstate commerce is a small, narrow subsect of that, which means that your analogy of why they destroy women does not apply. Your Kapler stuff and things like that are things that don't necessarily apply to us because we don't blame society for this. We blame people just as well. That's our virtue. 101, the critique debate. There's going to be a little bit of an overview, but you have a laptop. We have 2 links there, both on the center of power. The first is what we'll call the center of power. Your plan text 1EC says that you overrule the decision to move women to the center of power, quote unquote. This notion of centrality of power is what is wrong and misunderstands that power effects are everywhere and must be diagrammed. The impact of this is threefold. The first argument is inevitably pops up elsewhere. Our evidence cites that whenever you try to, it becomes like a weasel when you say this is the center of power, then you hammer it, goes somewhere else, and you say women must be, but this is one that creates areas of exclusion, such as homosexuality relations and things that homosexual relations or non-heterosexual relations, or things such as race and other areas of intersectionality that become ignored under your one-centric approach that must be the center. Other things become second to that, which is why they're rejected by that. Only the world of the alternative can solve this because it's one in which we have a broad and average. The visa point is this, is that you're in accurate predictions for quicker politics, which are much more effective in the long run. There'll be impact right on this in the case debate than one in R. The third argument impact of this was that it reinscribes the state as something to fight against because we must have state politics. This is the second Foucault card we read, that this very notion of essential model of power that the state currently currently has it means that we have to fight the state, which causes a situation of politics that is binary and necessarily prescribes very oppression we try to escape. The B point to this is our history disad your demand to a reversal of the Morrison decision as a prerequisite to any real rejection of gender-motivated violence. This is what is wrong with your approach of looking for social change. We shouldn't look for the Supreme Court decision or to say that we have to overrule the decision to allow us to act against gender-motivated violence. The decision of Morrison itself does nothing to stop rape. The belief that it does is one that you're assuming a power relation to exist in the first place that is not there. This is important because we should not have to demand the law change or reverse the law in order to advocate an alternative, but just say fuck the law and go upon our own situations of life. This is from Legislation 2006. That saying explicitly with the law and the whole fear of the symbolic order, say this anywhere near the expression of the same manifest of queer sexuality, fuck the social order, and the childish names of collective terrorists, fuck any, fuck the way of miss, fuck the poor, and send children in the net, fuck laws both with capable small L's and small L's, fuck the whole network of symbolic relationships that serves as prop. And the third, this symbolic terms, the small symbols in terms that case proves that your only offense to this of your symbolic approach to the decision of what it really means or what it told us to do is what is responsible for the failure of true gender policy, which internally turns the ability to solve your AF. Also, this alternative solves the entirety of the case right here because we can resist gender violence through body theater without representing it as a center of politics or misrepresenting power relations or anything like that, which means that we functionally are a pick of your entire 1AC representation, which is a reason why that all of your offense doesn't apply, and you can easily vote negative on this question. Also, here's another card on the history claim right here, which I'll read on the case line by line, actually. Twist one, you say the center is already defined by the status quo. First of all, that it is not defined at all. You have trust that the Supreme Court is right or is demanding or controlling positions of power to believe that they are in the center of power of the status quo. This is one that is not true, and we should reject it as laughable cause. The second that there are no impacts, as we explained above, and I'll read the social movements card here. The court does not cause social change. We don't need the court to allow us to cause change. We are the true actions of social change as people. This is an inter-capper evidence, and here's more evidence here that gives a contrast between the two. In 2005, there's continuing hypocrisy surrounding the Constitution. The Constitution, like the Bible, is infinitely flexible and is used to serve the political needs of the moment. The Constitution gives no rights to working people, no right to work 12-hour days, no right to living, no right to safe working conditions. Workers have to organize, go on strike, defy the law of the courts, the police, the create a general movement, 1-hour work days, Constitution Commission of Congress, the fourth to pass, minimum wage, Social Security, unemployment issues. This is the right to women to abortion that's been the Supreme Court decision. Road, one for the decision, all the country by grassroots organization, the 4 states to recognize the right. If the people insist that an act upon the Supreme Court decision can take it away, no Supreme Court decision can take it away. If we depend on the decision of the court like other branches, the courts recognize rights only after citizens gave them a direct action power enough to win the rights for themselves. Their next argument is we solve because they create empathy. However, the alternative does all this because we would solve too because we can agree with your body view and your presentation of it without necessarily having to demand that there are certain loci powers exist and we have to reverse those. The second is we shouldn't have to do more than the body because there's all explained on the case debate on the way this add to it, and that we would outweigh this because your body theater, your impact to it is one that is really small because we do at least a form of body theater which you could link 100% to our critique, which turns back your offense, which means a small solvency deficit is one that is outweighed by the critique. Your next argument is that the critique means it will never take action. This whole Foucault-centering thing. First of all, this is not all that will really apply to us because we are an act without believing there's a center of power in the first place that conditions the action. We can still act because power is everywhere. We all have control and it's infinitely reversible because of this. Their next arguments of Foucault privileges. First of all, this links to you much more than us because you are the one who does not act. You are body theater is just as much abstract theory as action is. Your performance was not an actual rape. It was not actually a real gender-motivated violence, but rather an abstraction, a theater of it. This is the theory without action. Your card answer really indicts. We are the only one that allows under our framework of doing both politics and the situation of this to solve this. This also doesn't link to any alternative, which means that you have no specific link to Foucault. You're ensuring your violence with the app is violence and victimization. This was all answered above. The permutation is not specific. First of all, this is written wrong. To do all the alternatives a way to do the affirmative is completely abusive because it is now one that combines words such as a way or an avenue and not in either the way, which makes it intrinsic, which makes it not necessarily fair for debate because you intrinsicness counterpoints can destroy permutations, destroy any type of disadvantage because you can always perm out of an impact. Also, there is severance because you sever your 1AC representation, which is not fair to debate because you're the representation of your 1AC is the only ground you've given us. We should not be allowed the only ground of saying, well, what you said is always bad, therefore we should say that rape is good or body theater is always bad. That is not something we should have to defend. It's not the topic on this debate. Their blame the state argument is just links just as much to you because you are the only one who refuses to move beyond the state. You reference the state, which is necessarily a bad interpretation. Your final human agency argument doesn't necessarily apply. It only applies to the slave morality card, which is we're not necessarily going for, specifically because we're both types of small morality. Yes.
Okay. Okay. You say that we take away your ground because we don't pass a civil remedy. How exactly? Can you explain to us what you expect us to do?
Okay, I did a lot of Morrison work before this topic and throughout the year, and all of it's been critically oriented. And our big strategy is a constitutive criminology argument, which is rape. If the question you're right, your framework is right. It's about how to address rape. We think the app should have to defend that a civil remedy or a court process is the way to deal with that.
How do we defend that a court
But you
process?
don't. That's the point.
How should we defend a court process?
You should say that civil remedies are good. You should say we
why,
overrule the
how
rational.
does that do anything?
That gets you ground. That gives us the only stable ground
no,
in debate. To overrule just a random word or phrase.
Like, why does talking about what the Supreme Court should or should not do mean anything?
It's not matters whether or not the Supreme Court should act, but whether that action results in what we should do. You should have to say that women have a right to civil remedies. You don't have to take a stance on whether to use the Supreme Court to get that, but you still have to defend civil remedies, aka the result of your action being good. That's a two-pronged test. You have to not only overrule the rationale, which is what you do, but you have to result in overruling the holding, which is that VAWA is unconstitutional. Thus, you must say VAWA is constitutional. This is all topicality, which is going to be the end.
Okay. I mean, I suppose what I'm interested in is, like, how do we construct the Supreme Court as the center of power?
That's actually a line where you say the Supreme Court is the center of power right now. That's on your solvency page that you gave us.
No, we say the Supreme Court is symbolic.
Yeah, it's symbolic of power right now. It's the center area of it. And then you say the plan text, quote unquote, is we should overrule the decision in order to move gender-motivated violence into the center of power.
Okay, I mean, look.
This line right here.
We say the power of the Supreme Court is not held by the 9 justices, but is within the hands of the people.
Yeah, you assume that there is power right now in the Supreme Court. We say there is no real power.
I mean, how is that?
No, you just said power is everywhere.
Yes, but there is no central focus of that power. Your 1AC plan text says the Supreme Court is the current focus of power now because of the Morrison decision.
Okay, but how is saying that there is power in the symbol of the Supreme Court the same as saying, like...
But you elevate it to the one of a center of power. Like, we've probably never read a Supreme Court decision.
Like, moving women to the center of power, why do you assume that that means we move them to the center of the Supreme Court? Like, we say the Supreme Court's not, doesn't have power in and of itself, so we should move them to the center of power relations.
I don't understand at all what you're asking at all. I think what you're asking, and our answer is that your 1AC framework is we should, Supreme Court decision in Morrison, because it is a central locus of power, conditions our understandings of women as not being central to power.
Okay.
Thus, we should overrule that decision.
How do you access body theater? Like, what do you do to display the body in pain?
That is a body, and that is pain. You should see me speak and have
I mean...
Everything is body, that's the point. Speech...
Okay, right, but is everything violence?
Is everything violence? Could be. I'm sure my 2 and a half people violent.